Mr. President.
The gentleman from the great province of Cavite, the kababayan of Congressman Loyola, neighbor of Carmona in Tagaytay, is recognized. Senator Francis Tol Tolentino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the permission of the good sponsor, I'm not here to interpolate, but this is a manifestation of support. Mr. President, during the previous Congress, we endeavored to have, together with Senator Lacson, to have Republic Act, Senate Bill 255 under Committee Report 270 be enacted into law, which was eventually enacted as Republic Act 11683, an act amending Section 450 of the Local Government Code as amended by Republic Act 9009 by providing for the requisites for the conversion of a municipality into a component city and for other purposes. Mr. President, and because of that, one of the outputs would be the bill under consideration today. Carmona is not just a small municipality in the province of Cavite. Carmona is rich in history, replete with traditions that cannot be found in other localities. And I'm very proud of Carmona, Mr. President. If Carmona becomes a city, there are certain traditions that are maintained, that should be maintained, and historically, that should be observed. Halimbawa po, Mr. President, naikot ko na po lahat ata ang sulok sa ating bansa. Dito lang po ako nakakita to every February, they have a solteo. And I have witnessed that. It is a tradition that has been practiced since the Spanish times. Solteo, Mr. President, involves the lottery of agricultural lands. They have agricultural lands which every 3 years would change hands for different farmers, different farmer groups. And it has been maintained since the Spanish times until today, as I speak. That's how Carmona regards history. And I'm very sure, Mr. President, if this bill will be passed into law, if Carmona will be converted into a city, Mr. President, not only will the requirements of Republic Act 11683 be complied with, but even the unwritten provisions of maintaining your history, maintaining an LGU's legacy will be observed. And I'm very sure of that. Carmona is a small place, but one of the gateways to the province of Cavite. Carmona is well endowed with several manufacturing firms, good-mannered citizenry, and I was just informed, even the famous Johns Hopkins University Hospital is now trying to relocate within the jurisdiction of Carmona. Johns Hopkins, Mr. President, is a world-class, 5-star hospital in the United States. Karangalan po ng buong bansa yan pag nalipat po yan at pumunta sa Carmona. Mr. President, I need not repeat what I have said during the deliberations of the bill that led into the passage of Republic Act 11683. This has something to do with the portability provision. This has something to do with the exception from the population and land area requirements for the conversion of a municipality into a component city. Tapos na po yun, Mr. President. Nalagpasan na po yun ng Carmona. But let me reiterate, Mr. President, the gist of the Supreme Court's guidance in Navarro versus Executive Secretary GR 180050 promulgated April 12, 2011. That the primordial criterion in the creation of any local government unit should be its economic viability. And I repeat, economic viability. Lahat po yan dinadala ng Carmona. Lahat po yan ng katangian ay bit-bit ng Carmona pagpasok po sa cityhood. Mr. President, we will be proud of Carmona. Carmona will be the 8th city in the province of Cavite. Carmona has been known for tourist spots, for a great horse racing facility, and other industrial endeavors. But Mr. President, Carmona showed the Philippines its famous hospitality. Nung bata po kami, Mr. President, nung panahon ni Governor Camerino, Dominador Camerino, siya po nagturo sa akin kung saan po yung shortcut papunta Maynila. Yung po ay may daan sa Carmona. Nung panahon pong yon, Mr. President, hindi pa ho pinag-uusapan ng mga informal settlements. Tinanggap na po ng bayan ng Carmona ang atin pong mga kababayan sa Metro Manila. At lahat po sila ngayon ay naninirahan sa Carmona, absorbing the traditions of Carmona, becoming now law-abiding Caviteños, Mr. President. That's why if Carmona becomes a city, not only will it be historical for our province to have an 8th city, I think, Mr. President, this will set a standard for other localities as well, aspiring to become a city, to have that one criterion: economic viability plus the ability to maintain its rich tradition and history. With that, Mr. President, and with the permission of the good sponsor, may I ask that I also be made a co-author of this measure. I am a proud Caviteño. Dapat po, Mr. President, maalaala po natin ang pangwalong lungsod ng lalawigan ng Cavite, ang Carmona, kung ito po ay magiging lungsod, at ako po ay nakakasigurado ay magiging isang trailblazing city, smart city, a city with medical facilities, a city for the modern Philippines. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I reiterate my full support for the conversion of the municipality of Carmona into the city of Carmona. Magandang gabi po at maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Senator Tolentino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Tolentino. Again, Mr. President, the status of the measures that we have sponsored this particular bill, and we are now in the period of interpellation. And so I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator J.V. Ejercito, and to interpellate Senator Win Gatchalian. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Wing Gatchalian is, of course, noted, and Senator J.V. Ejercito to sponsor to interpellate our distinguished colleague from Valenzuela, Senator Wing Gatchalian. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President is the good sponsor, willing to take a few questions, Mr. President.
Yes, certainly. Almost my batchmate as mayor and as a senator, definitely.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, I'll go straight to the point, Mr. President. Mr. President, I understand that Carmona will be the first municipality or LGU that will qualify or that is applying under RA 11683. This is the new law that allows the LGUs, allows municipalities to take a different avenue and convert into cities, Mr. President. And may I know from the good sponsor, number one is under RA 11683, what are the criteria that will allow municipalities to be converted into cities?
Under the Republic Act 11683, those wanting to be a city, locally generated average income should be as certified by the Department of Finance, should be at 400 million. 400 million for the last 2 consecutive years based on 2012 constant prices. Land area should be contiguous territory at least 100 square kilometers as certified by the Land Management Bureau. And and the population should not be less than 100,000 inhabitants as certified by the PSA. And probably we are both know the old Republic Act, when we became cities, that the former requirement was just 2 out of 3, wherein the minimum is 100 million income and 150,000 population and the same area. But in this RA, that's why Carmona is now qualified. It's 400 million income and population of not less than 100,000, Your Honor, Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, under the new law, it reduced the population to 100 million, 100,000,
100,000, yes.
but increased the minimum requirement for annual average income to 400 million at 2012 constant price. Is that correct, Mr. President?
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor.
And Carmona qualified under which criteria, Mr. President?
Carmona is qualified under both income and population, because Carmona's average locally generated income annual for fiscal years 2020 and 2021 based on 2012 constant price is 499.907 million as certified by the Department of Finance, Bureau of Local Government Finance. So this is more than a 400 million income requirement following the passage of RA 11683, Your Honor, amending Section 450 of the LGC on income requirement. And population, based on the requirement, Carmona has a population of 106,256 as of May 1, 2020, based on the 2020 Census of Population and Housing conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority. So, Your Honor, Mr. President, this fulfills the population requirement of 100,000 inhabitants under the Local Government Code as amended by RA 11680. So that's 2. With respect to the land area, this is where Carmona's land area fell short in compliance. It is only 31 kilometers. Of these, 27 square kilometers is in contested area with 3.3 kilometers an overlap area as certified by the NR Land Management Bureau. So, Mr. President, Your Honor, Carmona is qualified because of the income and the population based on RA 11683, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. So, in other words, Mr. President, they qualified based on the average annual income deflated at 2012 constant prices. So, their average annual income is 499 and their population is 106,000 as certified by the PSA. Mr. President, if we just for the record and just for my interest, Mr. President, the 499 is at 2012 prices. To date, just out of curiosity, what is the annual income of Carmona to date at 2001 level, Mr. President?
Mm-hmm.
2021, I mean.
2011. Your Honor, 2021 is 996 million total, Your Honor, Mr. President.
996 million in total,
2020.
Mr. President.
Total.
To be corrected, 92.
I stand to be corrected. It's 982,071,982,071,627 to be exact, Your Honor, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for that information. But, Mr. President, again, just to enrich the records and also out of my curiosity and enlightenment, Mr. President, the original requirement for population is 150,000. No? So
Yes, that is
with
correct.
this new law that was enacted recently, we reduced it to 100,000. I'm just curious, no, on obviously the income. It goes without saying that they're highly productive. There's a lot of business in Carmona, and I've been to Carmona many times, and I've seen a lot of businesses there, a lot of employment. Hence, the locally generated income is quite substantial. I'm just curious, how come the population has not reached 150,000, despite the obvious growth and the economic activity in Carmona? I'm just curious and just to be part of the discussion, Mr. President.
Yung RA. RA. Pilipinas. Philippines RA. Yes, Your Honor, Mr. President, this Republic Act was passed 2021. I was not here, Your Honor, but I think that the rationale to lower the population requirement is that to give chance to cities like Carmona and others that are really progressive or extremely progressive that have very high income and very progressive, but because of limited space and population, they will never qualify. So I think this is the rationale why the RA 1680 was passed, no, reducing the population requirement from 150,000 to 100,000 as long as their income is more than 400 million, Your Honor. Because from what I know also, when we became a city, what we are familiar with is the 150,000
Yeah.
population and 100 million. At that time, it was 100 million income requirement, Your Honor, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, was there any discussion on, just out of discussion, no? That's for the purposes of enriching the record, how come Carmona had difficulty in reaching the 150,000 threshold? Is there any,
Size?
um,
I think, Your Honor, Mr. President, because of the size of Carmona, it's only 27 square kilometers, no? May 3 kilometers pang overlap. So probably that's the main reason why it will really have a difficulty reaching the 150,000 threshold, Your Honor.
all right. Well, Mr. President, San Juan is a smaller city. No?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, San Juan is it's only 5.95 square kilometers. But San Juan has managed to reach the threshold, Mr. President. So I'm just curious on how come Carmona is having a hard time reaching that threshold, Mr. President.
Well, probably being the former mayor of San Juan, Your Honor, Mr. President, we have the development is vertical. We have a lot of condominiums, medium rise, both high rise and medium rise, and likewise townhouses. The density is higher. And in Carmona, there are a lot of industrial estates. If I'm not mistaken, there are number. There are about 12 industrial estates and 3 industrial parks, a lot of companies, golf courses, so and rice fields. There's still some rice fields that are left, no? So probably that's the reason why the population of Carmona is only 106,000 compared to San Juan, which has more than 150,000, given the smaller space, Your Honor, because of the vertical development and because of Carmona's sprawling development, Your Honor, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. It also helps that San Juan is in the heart of Metro Manila. And I think it's situated where everyone wants to move in there because you can go virtually everywhere from San Juan. You can go to Manila, you can go to Makati, you can go to the north. And despite the small landmass of San Juan attracts a lot of residents. And it became the effective bedroom community of Metro Manila. That's why we're also seeing a lot of vertical housing in San Juan. So, well, Mr. President, I'll move on to another topic, which is an important feature of the bill. As we all know, that the good sponsor is a former mayor. We were both mayors at one point. We actually became mayors almost at the same time. I think
Almost, yeah.
Senator JV was just one term ahead of us. And the cities are very, um, very careful when it comes to conversion because we all know that every municipality converted into a city, the ERA share per city goes down. No? And if we look at history in the last many years, there are more municipalities converting into a city. Earlier, we were discussing that during our time, there were only 80 cities.
Yes, that is correct because I was also surprised that there are about 147 cities at the moment. During our time as when we were mayors, there were only about 80 plus cities during that time. So that's not too long ago.
Yeah, so in other words, during our time, 80 cities were sharing the pie. Now
37, I think.
147 cities are now sharing the pie, no? And hindi wala naman pong bagong municipalities being created, no? And wala naman cities moving into the province, no? So the number of cities are increasing, the number of municipalities are decreasing, the number of provinces more or less stay the same or increase very little, Mr. President. So that's why the cities have been quite careful, cautious, and wary whenever there is a municipality being converted into a city. That's why they're very they really make sure that cities are qualified. No? The cities are not against conversion, but they just want to make sure that they are qualified with the set criteria because most cities, including Valenzuela, pass through the old qualification no, of 100 million average income in a population of 150,000. So most of our cities pass that. But Mr. President, as a way to allay the fears of the cities, in the law we included a portability or a porting mechanism, Mr. President, wherein in this particular measure, no, RA 11683, there's a feature here wherein those municipalities who will avail of this measure should bring their national taxes when they convert, Mr. President, so that the impact to the conversion will not be substantial, Mr. President. So I'll focus my question on that so that we can spread into the records some numbers and also so that the other cities will understand how to operationalize this portability feature of the law, Mr. President. So I'll start off, Mr. President, with the current tawag na ngayon is NTA, no? The current NTA of Carmona as a municipality. How much is that? And is that amount the amount to be ported to the conversion, Mr. President?
Right now, Your Honor, Mr. President, 2022, the national tax allotment of Carmona is 334,634,048. 334,634,048 pesos.
And that amount, Mr. President, will be the amount ported to ported to when it's converted into a city, Mr. President.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. President, do we have any projections for 2020, 2023, 2024, and 3 years, 2025? Because the porting mechanism is for the next 3 years. So
That is correct.
do we have any projections to that effect so that we'll put into the records the amounts to be ported in the next 3 years?
NTA lang. Yung NTA. Kasi NTA.
So, ano
Your Honor, there's no submission yet because DBM will be the one to compute. So what we only have right now is 2023 of 268, 268,212,832,000 for 2023. But probably if it will help, I can read to you the locally sourced revenue of Carmona. It's 787,168 for 2023. Projection for 2024 is 819,649,462.37 cents. And for 2025, it will be 885,221,419.36, Your Honor, Mr. President. So there is no available projection yet for NTA, Your Honor.
Mr. President, is my number are my numbers correct, Mr. President? In 2022, the NTA right now is 334 million.
That's
Tama ba?
correct.
And for 2023 is 268.
Ba't bumaba?
So bumaba siya, Mr. President?
Ba't bumaba?
projection ng dami.
Yes, Your Honor, it went down from 334,634,048. It's now, and for 2030, it will be 268,212,832. This is probably the effect of the Mandanas Garcia ruling, Your Honor, Mr. President.
And also the effect of COVID, Mr. President, because the calculation
Yes.
is the average of past 3 years,
Yes, that is correct, Your
Mr.
Honor.
President. So, but nevertheless, this 268 will be ported to the side of the cities, Mr. President.
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'll go on a broader scale. When Carmona converts into a city, how much NTA will it receive? At least for 2023, assuming 2023 is the first year. Masyadong, I think overstate yung ating 200.
We don't have the exact figures.
Kasi yung 200. Bumaba kasi yung last year.
Study po ito kasi hindi po nasa induction ng
Local. Baka yung national.
240 million.
But it's overstated yun.
240 million projection.
It will be,
CP.
Hmm.
opo, pag naging ano po siya. Oo, city. 769.
Hindi, RTE, NTE. NTE po natin. NTA.
2022 estimated ng benefit.
Ano?
759.
Your Honor, Mr. President, for 2020,
2022.
2022, the estimated share of Carmona Cavite will be as a city will be 759.9 million, or an increase of 519.57 of or 216% increase, Your Honor.
216%. So, Mr. President, from currently there, that's for 2023, Mr. President?
That's 2022, Your Honor.
2022, okay. Do we have the number for 2023?
As of now, we don't have because DBM, we are still waiting for.
Okay, Mr. President,
for
we'll
DBM.
just request from the good sponsor through DBM the numbers, Mr. President. But we'll take the 749, Mr. President. So what we're saying is from the NTA that they are getting right now of 334 million, it will increase to 749 million when they convert into a city, Mr. President.
Yes, that is correct.
And Mr. President, from that, ano lang to, this is, I'm just going to run some simulations, Mr. President, because we don't have the actual number. Assuming 749 is their increase for 2023. They will be porting 268, Mr. President, um, to the cities, Mr. President. So that will leave about 481 that will be drawn out of the share of the cities, Mr. President. Is that correct, more or less? No?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, do we have a number? Because 481 will be drawn from the cities. Obviously, the share of the cities will go down. No? Do we have a number that says how much will the cities share on the average will go down once Carmona becomes a city, Mr. President?
Sorry, Your Honor, we don't have the figures right now because we also asked the LCP for their position. They have not submitted as of the moment. So
Okay,
we
Mr.
probably will just submit it once we get hold of it.
Okay,
Your
Mr.
Honor.
President. Well, Mr. President, I just want to compare because the porting feature of the law is quite a good mechanism to reduce the impact to the cities. No, so I just want to compare fully with your indulgence. How much the porting mechanism reduced the impact of the reduction per city, Mr. President. So that was I was trying to drive at, Mr. President, so that the cities who are listening to us will appreciate that the porting mechanism added caution, no, in the reduction on their NTA, Mr. President.
Your Honor, if sorry, if I may just give you an study on the on impact. For example, for Puerto Princesa City, it was negative 0.91%. In Vigan, maximum was negative 3.65%. Yun yung maximum, but the minimum or consider it's a negative 0.91%, Your Honor. These are from the BLGF study.
That's when the is that due to the conversion, Mr. President?
Was this data from the pag tinanong yung municipality representative, mag-i-increase.
Hindi ko magamit ito kasi stated siya.
Pero in the case of the state list,
Right.
but
hindi
in
Isa sa total. Sa mong league.
the first year lang during that year na
Oo nga.
it will go back to normal.
Hindi, formula
Yun
kasi
sa
ng
league ng
NTA. It's last 3 years, baka bumaba yung ano.
Mr. President, Your Honor, in the study of the BLGF, no, when a municipality converts into a city, the former era or NT allotment increases significantly, while the era or the NTA now for the existing cities decreases, but very minimally.
Can we get an estimate on that, Mr. President?
Estimate.
Just a few cities that I heard earlier that 91.91% reduction in Puerto Princesa, 0.35 reduction for vegan. So that's the reduction in terms of their era amount, Mr. President.
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor. That's a minimum for Puerto Princesa negative 0.91, and the maximum in Vegan City was felt at negative 3.65, Your Honor.
3.65.
Pag total.
All right, Mr. President, we'll just request from the good sponsor through DBM a calculation on how much is the reduction to the NTA of the cities when Carmona becomes a city, and how much is the reduction to the NTA of the city when the portability, if the portability is not there. No? So we just have to, we just want to put that on record so that we want to make the cities appreciate that the porting mechanism reduce the impact to their NTA, Mr. President.
Yes, we will submit, Your Honor, once we get hold of the projections from DBM and BLGF.
And Mr. President, to add to that, Mr. President, may I also request a projection for the next 3 years because the porting mechanism is for the next 3 years.
Yes, Mr. President, Your Honor, we will submit.
And lastly, Mr. President, how many cities or how many municipalities will comply under this new RA 11683, Mr. President?
Ito mo, may talo ko 5 lakh lang.
COVID-19.
5 lakh lang, 5 lakh.
Ay, po, Carmona, Rosario, and also Cainta. Cainta is not applied. Ayaw. Ito po kasi 250 kilo una.
Ano ba talaga sa dalawa? Hindi, yung qualified doon sa... Your Honor, Mr. President, there are 3. Aside from Carmona, it's Rosario in Cavite, and also Cainta in Rizal. But Cainta is not applying to be a city
Okay,
as
Mr.
of the
President.
moment.
Okay, so Mr. President, aside from Carmona, 2 other municipalities are can qualify, no? But it's up to their decision if they want to apply or not under this new RA 11863.
Yes, Your Honor, because probably in Rizal, a lot of municipalities are now cities. So probably it's the same, they're the same situation as the highly progressive provinces, no? That most municipalities are now converted to city. That's why Cainta chose to remain with the
Yeah.
province. Your
Well,
Honor.
Mr. President, if they convert into a city, the province will lose real estate income, Mr. President, because the cities will now be entitled to collect their own real estate income, Mr. President. So
That is correct, Your Honor.
I think that's one major impact on the fiscal well-being of the province, Mr. President. But just out of discussion, I just want to put on record what are the other municipalities that can qualify, no? Of course, subject to their decision, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, seems to me that after the deliberation, Mr. President, Carmona seems to be qualified under the new law, RA 11683. Their average annual income deflated to 2012 constant prices, about 499, and their population is about 106,000 inhabitants, Mr. President. So under the new law, that increase the minimum income requirement and reduce the minimum population requirement, Carmona seems to be qualified to become a city. So, Mr. President, I thank the good sponsor for his time and also for enriching the records and also giving this representation good appreciation of the bill at hand. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you also to the gentleman from Valenzuela for your for interpretation. Thank you very much.
And if I may, Mr. Majority Leader, just 2 minutes. Nung bata po ako, at ako po yung nag-aaral sa Los Baños, UP, dinadaanan ko yung Carmona almost every weekend pag umuwi ako ng Manila. Nagdo-dorm po ako doon. And nung araw, mid-80s, puro talahib lang yun. Yung Carmona, talahib. Puro kogon. At itaniman ng palay. Lowland rice siya. And then through the years, all the way to the early 90s and mid-90s, nakikita nyo yung transformation ng Carmona into an industrial estate and what it is now, a future city of Carmona. Kaya, you have my full support to the men and women of Carmona. Congressman Loyola, matagal na natin pinaplano po ito, Mayor Mayora, and members of the council. At least you have 1 vote with me, the Senate President, and we will pass this as soon as we can. Meron na lang 1 more interpellator for tomorrow. at hopefully may papasa na po natin ito on second reading this week. So, congratulations to the men and women of Carmona. You deserve it for all the hard work. I've seen it with my own eyes. Sabi ko nga, kogo niyan dati. Ngayon, grabe. Ano na, industrial estate, industrial zone. So, congratulations to the women and men, the men and women leaders of Carmona.
Thank you,
So,
our
just
Senate
wanted to
President.
manifest that, Your Honors.
Thank you, Sir President. Likewise, I saw how Carmona developed through the years. During the 1990s, when I was still in real estate development, I used to develop a lot of I had some projects in Dasmariñas, Cavite. So, tama po kayo. It was all grass, kogon, and then slowly nagkaroon ng golf courses, industrial parks. So I likewise was witness on how Carmona really blossomed into one of the most progressive municipalities in Cavite. Sa kaka-develop, na-develop din.
Hindi ba doon nakatira
Pagmamahal
yung...
sa Cavite.
Hindi ba doon nakatira, Mr. Sponsor? Mr. Sponsor, hindi ba doon nakatira yung girlfriend mo dati sa Carmona?
Expo. 1990s po.
Ex-girlfriend, okay.
Kaka-develop po doon, na-develop din.
Okay, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, wala akong kwento nung bata ka kasi hindi pa ako pinapanganak na Mr. President. Mr. President,
Yung governor na binanggit ni Senator Tolentino, Mr. Majority Leader, hindi pa yata ako pinanganak noon kasi hindi. Ang kilala ko lang nung Governor Remulla, yung tatay ni Boying. Anong year kaya nun? Yung binanggit niyang governor.
si Senator Tolentino has been around since 1900, Mr. President.
Okay, 1900, okay.
Yeah, just Mr. President, just very short manifestation. I had the chance to work with Congressman Roy Loyola and the better Loyola, the mayor of Carmona, Mr. President. And I remember being at the helm of TESDA, we were able to create a lot of jobs, if I recall, from the CCAP or the Call Center Association of the Philippines. And it's very refreshing, Mr. President, to see the development of Carmona. And even last Congress, this representation supported this measure. And records will bail me out, Mr. President. So I just want to put that on record that I join my Senate President in supporting this measure. Mr. President, considering there are a number of